It's time for Debrief. Catch up on the week's top stories on TRT World.
We're currently here in Kwanda province in central Angola.
We are listening and hearing to the testimonies of the people.
And Turkey is sending another humanitarian aid ship.
Yeah, I can hear you.
One of the main things that people... Let's turn to Gaza now, where Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 2 Palestinians, including a child in the eastern part of the Gaza Strip. Now, the attack comes exactly 1 month since a fragile ceasefire was declared, and Palestinians face shortages of food, water and medicine, as well as soaring prices in markets.
Gaza is in God's hands. It has been destroyed. There is no work and the situation is difficult. We want them to treat us well and for countries to stand with us. They're just watching us.
There's a lot of disappointment when it comes to aid deliveries and the improvement in people's lives. Hardly any noticeable improvement has happened since the ceasefire.
It is a cold, merciless job. Palestinians in Khan Yunis working for the Gaza Health Ministry, moving more bodies to a morgue after receiving them from Israel. The exchange, just the latest element of the US brokered ceasefire deal that has seen more than 300 of Gaza's dead returned home.
Multiple Israeli military operations were reported across the Gaza Strip in the early hours of Thursday, including airstrikes, gunfire and demolition activity.
It's not weapons, but the weather that's worrying some.
Look at the water, how we're drowning from the rain. It only lasted half an hour, so imagine if this lasted 4 hours. What's going to happen to the people in the camp? How are we supposed to manage at night? The mats are all soaked, and the blankets, the bedding, and the floor too. Where are we supposed to sleep?
Around 2,000 Palestinian prisoners have been returned home as part of the Gaza ceasefire deal.
Surviving one form of torture was only the beginning.
They stripped us naked, locked us in a cell, and 27 members of the Qatar unit entered with 3 or 4 dogs attacking us. No words can describe the fear and pain.
We're here in Deir Istia, a village near Salfit in the northern occupied West Bank, where yesterday night large crowds of illegal Israeli settlers raided this village. They entered into this mosque and burnt part of it. It's one of many attacks that have been taking place in the occupied West Bank, where Palestinians are being injured and killed and their properties are being set on fire.
An average of more than 8 settler attacks occur every day in the occupied West Bank. In October 2025 alone, settlers carried out around 264 attacks.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says the situation in the frontline city of Pokrovsk remains difficult, with the scale of Russian attacks increasing there. Russia has been threatening the strategically vital city, dubbed the gateway to Donetsk, for more than a year.
Some Russian sources, they're talking about having taken control of more than 95% of Pokrovsk city. From the Ukrainian side, they're not talking about the extent of control that the Russians have at this point in time.
Well, Russia has long been wanting to capture the city of Pokrovsk. Seizing it would put Vladimir Putin one step closer to occupying the entire Donbass region. And if the city does fall, it would make it almost impossible to defend nearby Mirnohad. Ukraine's top commander also says things have significantly worsened for his army in parts of Zaporizhzhia. Ukrainian troops have been forced to withdraw from 5 villages in that region.
So let me quickly ask you this. Is Ukraine losing the war?
Well, it's certainly not winning it, and it's increasingly difficult for the Ukrainians to hold the line. The Russians are clearly piling in.
Most observers are expecting Pokrovsk to fall soon. The government in Kiev is facing domestic challenges too. Several officials have been charged over an alleged $100 million corruption scandal.
According to a number of surveys, most Ukrainians have been unwilling to let go of their occupied territories. But many of them are now saying that they're not getting the required military assistance in order to sustain the war effort.
So far, Moscow has been saying it is open for the resumption of the negotiations, but every day Moscow has been saying that the talks are not resuming. Ukrainians are finding themselves in a much less favorable situation.
At least 6 people were killed, around 30 others injured in Kiev when Russia launched a massive drone and missile attack overnight.
Russian missiles and drones striking critical infrastructure in Kiev. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko called it a massive enemy attack. He says almost every district in the capital has been hit.
Russia has not given up on its belief that it can bomb Ukraine into submission.
After almost 4 years of war and efforts by US President Donald Trump to reach a now stalled peace deal, neither side seems to be backing down. More shots, more stories with the news in brief. Sudan's civil war has seen the rapid support forces continue to grab more and more land from the Sudanese army.
The RSF are currently trying to mirror what they have done in El Fasher and the northern part of Darfur region. Now, after taking control of the entire Darfur region, they are trying to seize more territory through Kordofan region.
The UN has said all parties in the fighting have committed war crimes and human rights abuses. Tens of millions of civilians are trapped in a nightmare of mass displacement, famine, slaughter, and the weaponized rape of women and children.
There is mounting evidence that rape is being deliberately and systematically used as a weapon of war. Women's bodies, ladies and gentlemen, have just become a crime scene in Sudan. There are no safe spaces that are left.
On Wednesday, Iraq's election results handed victory to Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani's Reconstruction and Change bloc, with 1.3 million votes, or 56%. Turnout beat expectations, though many Iraqis still see Sudanese government as corrupt.
Although you are seeing a lot of these celebrations, and although the people around me right now are very passionate, there are many, many other people in this country, millions of people, who chose to boycott the election, either because something called for it, one of the biggest political blocs in this country chose to boycott this election, or because, as I was saying earlier, completely disillusioned by a political establishment who they say does not keep their promises to the people.
But Sudani's win doesn't seal his power, not yet. He still needs to cut deals with rival parties to form a new ruling coalition, a process that could drag on for months. On Monday, Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara met with U.S. President Donald Trump to discuss Syria-U.S. relations and regional interests. It marked the first time a Syrian head of state has ever visited the White House. The meeting came days after the U.S. removed al-Shara, a former al-Qaeda leader, from its specially designated global terrorist sanctions list.
People said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts.
The visit is part of Damascus's goal to strengthen ties with Washington as it works to rebuild post-war Syria to the tune of a price tag of hundreds of billions of dollars, according to the World Bank.
Al-Shara did manage to get a 180-day suspension of Caesar Act sanctions that punished Syria for widespread allegations of human rights abuses by the Assad regime.
On Monday, there was an explosion in India. A car blew up at the historic Red Fort in Delhi, one of the city's busiest areas, killing at least 8 people. Officials say they're probing whether or not it was terrorism. And on Tuesday, a suicide bomber blew up in front of the district court in Islamabad, Pakistan, killing 12. It's seen as a sharp escalation in militant violence and the city's deadliest attack on civilians in years. So far, no group has claimed responsibility. Also on Tuesday, the UK suspended some of its intelligence sharing with the United States over US military strikes on small boats in the Caribbean, accusing them of drug trafficking without evidence. The move marks a sharp diplomatic turn between longtime allies amid concerns the U.S. actions may breach international law. Also in the U.S., on Wednesday, the House passed a bill to end the longest government shutdown in history, just hours after it passed in the Senate. The deal keeps Washington running through January 30th, reversing layoffs and furloughs, but it drops an extension for health insurance subsidies for 22 million Americans, set to expire this year. And we bring you a taste of our programs. This week, it's Africa Matters and Beyond the Game.
When Assimi Goïta seized power after a 2020 coup, he promised to stabilize the country and return to civilian rule. But 5 years later, Goïta is now being criticized for the deteriorating security situation in Mali. The central, western and northern regions are increasingly being taken over by terror groups, with attacks on civilians by the Al-Qaeda-linked militant group JNIM on the rise. A report released by the conflict monitoring NGO ACLED attributes attacks on civilians in Mali between 2023 and 2024 to several actors. JNIM was accused of being behind 33% of the incidents. In September this year, JNIM blocked the entry of fuel tankers from neighboring countries, leading to severe fuel shortages. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says as of 2025, 6.4 million people in Mali are in need of aid. That is 28% of the country's population. However, the humanitarian community is sick to assist 4.7 million of the most vulnerable due to funding issues.
I think the situation is quite dire. What we're experiencing, especially with the shortage of fuel and the blockage by Al-Qaeda's affiliate JNIM, is a clear indication that what the group is doing by kidnapping and also burning vehicles that are transporting fuel towards Bamako and the rest of the country is to instigate an internal insurrection by pressuring the military junta government to perhaps step down.
Moving on to Formula One, and Lando Norris has taken a major step towards the title with a first victory at the Brazilian Grand Prix. The British McLaren driver rounded off a win in the sprint race and pole position in qualifying with a dominant drive in Interlagos. Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes was second, and Max Verstappen, after starting from the pit lane, somehow claimed third place.
Very happy. I was just very happy. I think I was pushing. It was still not an easy race. I had to manage the tyres a lot. And the pace was great, clearly. I think it wasn't the easiest race in terms of managing tyres.
Meanwhile, Ferrari are not having a good year, which was reflected by their performance in Interlagos. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were forced to retire, and the team dropped to fourth in the Constructors. Hamilton has described his maiden season in the car as a nightmare, and the bosses are not happy either. Chairman John Elkann has since come out and said the drivers need to stop talking and focus on their jobs. Well, Elkann believes the work behind the scenes is progressing, but the men in the cars need to lift their game. Lando Norris delivers yet again in a near-perfect weekend at the Brazilian Grand Prix, edging pretty close to the championship title, right?
Oh, no, that's a big one. We've got 3 races to go. Sure, mathematically, he's looking very, very good. But there's 3 races left, and as we've seen, anything can happen.